Hello YouTube and welcome back to Beware the Q. In this video I'll be giving you a brief introduction to every single species that we meet in the book All Tomorrows by C.M. Kozeman. Martians. The first species mentioned in the book, the Martians, are a race of Homo sapiens descended from colonists originally from Earth who travelled to and settled on Mars around 300 to 400 years prior. The weaker gravity on Mars, along with some genetic engineering, has given the Martians a spindly, lithe frame and elongated features, and they are considerably taller than their Earth counterparts, who they would eventually go to war with. Star People. Genetically engineered by Earth and Mars scientists somewhere around the 31st century following an apocalyptic interplanetary war between the two planets, the Star People were designed to possess heightened intellect and talents far more advanced than that of their Earth and Mars-based creators. They were created with the intention of having them carry the human race into the future, using their superior brain power to solve the problems of interstellar travel, which they did, before heading off into the stars to colonize worlds throughout the Milky Way. Pandaravis pandora. Discovered on an alien world by the Star People, Pandaravis was found to in fact be a highly evolved therizinosaur which originated on Earth. It was somehow transported from Earth to this world, meaning that this was the first time the Star People had come across signs of there being intelligent alien life in the cosmos. The Q. The main antagonists of the story, the Q, are a billion-year-old alien race which considers itself to be the true rulers of the universe, and in a nomadic fashion they travel from galaxy to galaxy, genetically modifying all life forms that they come across into forms more pleasing to themselves. They are religious zealots, and they have a complete mastery of genetic engineering and nanotechnology. Before leaving for other galaxies, they would wreak much havoc on the Star People over the next 1,000 years, who they would change into a myriad of strange forms that we'll now meet. The Worms. The first Q-created species that we meet derived from the Star People, the worms, like all post-human species, have had their human intelligence removed. They are said to be around the size of a human being's arm, and they live on a scorching desert world too hot for life to live on the surface. They live underground and spend their time digging, eating, and mating. They would, however, begin to re-evolve their sapience over the ensuing millions of years. Titans. The transmuted offspring of the Star People, the Titans are gigantic 40-meter-long behemoths. They were among the more intelligent of the future humans who would have re-evolved their human intelligence were it not for an ice age that would envelop their planet, killing them off. Predators and prey. The Q would change many of the Star People of one world into a variety of predatorial creatures resembling goblins, vampires and werewolves, and others into herbivorous prey items for the predators to hunt. One unknown variety of predator would become the dominant life form of the planet, and would then go on to evolve into a highly advanced form. The prey, it would seem, would descend further and further into animalistic forms, and become livestock to the predator's later forms. Mantelopes. One of the Q's cruelest creations, the mantelopes were a species that were given an animal-like form, resembling a quadrupedal mammal like a strange camel-horse hybrid, but were made to retain their human intelligence. Being able to understand the world around them, but being unable to change it due to their animal bodies, they would live lives of quiet desperation and misery, before eventually devolving further to the point of losing their sapience and becoming entirely animalistic. Swimmers. A species of future human designed to live underwater, they possess a shark-like appearance. They seem to have still possessed a high degree of intelligence, as it is said that in the book they often spoke to each other, but could not understand each other. The swimmers would manage to survive the harsh process of natural selection, and would evolve to become something quite extraordinary further down the line. Lizard herders. Unlike all other future humans, the Q hadn't heavily modified the lizard herders' physical appearance, instead only stunting the development of their brains. They would instinctively begin to herd the lizards of their world, the descendants of pets brought from Earth. Theirs would be a highly unique evolutionary path, which we'll come back to later. Temptors. In the book we're shown both a male and female example of a species known as the Temptors. The males are small and spend their lives feeding and protecting the females. The females are stationary beaked flesh cones, half buried underground and completely reliant on the males to take care of their needs. Bone crushers. 3 meters tall with a large beak, the bone crushers are descended from human-derived animals that the Q kept as pets. Their diet was rather disgusting as they fed primarily on rotting flesh. They would soon evolve intelligence, but would not grow out of their dependency on carrion for food, which severely limited them as a species. They would eventually go extinct after reaching their medieval period. Colonials. Perhaps the most horrific future human species of them all, the colonials were given their form as punishment for fighting off 2 waves of Q invasion. They were changed into sheets of living flesh with eyes and full consciousness, and were linked together through a basic network of nerves. They were designed as sewage filtering devices for Q society. Flyers. A number of flying species of future humans populated the Q-dominated worlds. One variety, however, would survive and become the top predator of its world thanks to a starfish-shaped turbine-like heart, artificially designed by the Q, which could pump blood to all of its extremities at once. Hand flappers. Also a descendant of a flying species, the hand flappers' ancestors would eventually give up their power of flight, instead filling a niche on the ground. They would use their wing-derived arms and now useless wings to engage in mating dances, the most elaborate of which would successfully attract a mate. They never would regain their sapience, and would spend the rest of their time in existence as mere animals. Blind folk. On one world, inside continent-sized shelters that were hidden underground, the Star People waited for the Q to pass them by. They were, however, quickly found and then remade. They were changed into a form known as the Blind Folk, a species of sightless human that would use echolocation as their means of perception. They would manage to live this way for a long time, before the shifting of their world's continental plates would crush them and their settlements one by one. Lopsiders. The bizarre and Picasso-esque Lopsiders are the descendants of Star People who were transported to a world with 36 times the amount of gravity that Earth had, and were made over physically for life within this environment. Despite having what would seem like us to be a major physical disability, the Lopsiders managed to thrive on their new world, and would manage to evolve their sapience once again. The Striders. Theirs was a world quite the opposite to that of the Lopsiders, a moon of Jupiter with 1/5 the amount of gravity found on Earth. They were peaceful and delicate, extremely tall and with a frame so fragile that simply falling over could kill them. After the Q left, they would survive for around 2 million years, before a species of dinosaur-like creature that had evolved from the formerly domesticated poultry brought from Earth would wipe them out. Parasites. A form of parasitic future human which was remade to be a tick-like pest the size of a human fist. It would attach itself to its host and feed off of them, and as odd as it may seem, this blood-sucking future human species would go on to become an intelligent race in its own right. Fingerfishers. A group of former Star People who, after Q modification, became a species of humanoids whose diet consists entirely of fish. They have long, hooked fingers which are used for catching fish, and they live peaceful lives alongside the waterways of their archipelago world. Eventually, the fingerfishers regain their sapience. Hedonists. The hedonists were bred as pets by the Q, with their lives being even more leisurely than that of the fingerfishers. Their existence consists of little more than lounging around, eating and mating, traits which would become integral to their cultural identity further down the line. Insectophagi. A species of future human that had quietly evolved into a form that subsisted itself entirely on insects and small animals. Barely noticeable when they first came on the scene, their species would go through a series of coincidences and galactic invasions that would make them become the longest lasting future human species of them all. Spacers. Though the majority of Star People would succumb to successive waves of Q invasion, one group would flee and manage to evade them by hiding within hollowed out asteroids in space. Here, in a zero-gravity environment, they would evolve independently and entirely without Q intervention. They would become the Spacers, a form of future human that could travel throughout their zero-G society by expelling jets of air through their genetically modified anuses. The Ruin Haunters. Starting off as a simple caveman-like humanoid, the Ruin Haunters, unlike their cousins on other worlds, had ready access to ancient Star People technology which, for reasons unknown, was not dismantled and disposed of by the Q. Having access to technology of which they knew very little right from their beginning would instill a deep-seated arrogance and delusion of grandeur within the species, as they believed themselves to be the true heirs to the Star People. This species' evolved form, several million years later, would truly become a force to be reckoned with. The Unknown Aquatic Human. All we have left of this unknown species is an image of its skeleton. It is said within the image caption that this species flourished and then died out, as all living things eventually do. The Snake People. The first of the future human species to regain its sapience, the Snake People are the evolved forms of the worms. They spend their time listening to vibrational ground music, they read, and enjoy lives very much like our own today. Their social development followed a similar path to ours, including industrial revolutions, social experiments, civil wars, and world wars, eventually reaching the point of globalization. The Killer Folk. Perhaps the most violent of all future humans, the Killer Folk are the evolved descendants of the Predators. All of their religions allowed for periods of ritualistic killings and sacrifices, even into their more civilized era. Eventually, these practices would be done away with, following a perilously close near-miss with a world war which would have been fought between those who wished to continue their killing ways and those who wished to move on from them. They would progress and go on to form the Second Galactic Empire with another future human species. Tool Breeders. Descendants of the swimmers, the tool breeders became intelligent, aquatic future humans whose technology would be based around genetic manipulation and utilization of other sea-based life forms. They became masters of genetic engineering, rivaling the Q in this field, and would eventually look to the stars to begin colonizing new, far-off ocean planets. Saurosapiens. Hyper-evolved and intelligent reptiles descended from the lizard herders' pets. Theirs truly is a case of a world being turned upside down, as the lizards would evolve to become the intelligent, dominant species, while the lizard herders themselves would further devolve into an animalistic state, thanks to Q intervention which would stunt their brains' development. The Modular People. The evolved form of the Colonials, the Modulars are made up of several living beings, which can be changed at will, echoing their past as separate beings forced to live their lives stitched together. Pterosapiens. Descended from the Flyers, the Pterosapiens are a race of flying future humans. Theirs is a highly intelligent civilization, boasting some of the greatest philosophers the galaxy has ever seen. Their lifespan, however, is extremely short, owing to their artificially designed hearts, which makes their species prone to severe heart conditions. The Asymmetric People. Descendants of the Lopsiders, or rather created by the Lopsiders, in a way that parallels the development of their Earth and Mars-based ancestors and their creation of the Star People. Unlike the Star People, however, the Asymmetrics ruthlessly exterminated their parent race and went on to rule their solar system without them. Symbiotes. The symbiotes are descended from the parasites and their hosts. They now have a beneficial coexistence, with the parasites being the brains and the hosts being the brawn. The parasites would have a body for work, a body for leisurely pursuits, and likely other hosts used for a variety of other activities. The Sail People. The descendants of the Fingerfishers, whose long fingers had long since evolved into sails which would be used to propel them across the surfaces of water bodies. The Satyriacs. A race whose existence is all about pleasure, much like their ancestors the Hedonists. They would, along with the Killerfolk, become the other founding race of the Second Galactic Empire. The Bugfacers. The Bugfacers are the descendants of the Insectophagi. Deeply xenophobic due to an unknown alien invasion taking place at some point in their history, they would eventually join the Second Galactic Empire and would then become the sole survivors of a looming mass genocide further down the line. Astromorphs. The Astromorphs are the descendants of the Spacers, and they continue to live out their lives within the hollowed-out asteroids, building highly advanced societies unimaginable to us in the 21st century. In this evolved form, they were godlike beings, but they would become even greater still. The Gravital. Descended from the Ruin Haunters, who had a head start on the other Q creations due to ancient Star People technology being left on their world. After their sun expanded to a degree that made organic life impossible on their world, they eventually found a way to upload their minds into machine bodies using quantum computing technology. They still retained human minds and emotions, however. They are described in the book as being just as advanced, if not more so, than the Astromorphs. They would eventually go on to commit the worst act of mass genocide the galaxy had seen thus far, wiping out every race within the Second Galactic Empire, save for a small amount of bug faces. Subjects. These are the descendants of the surviving bug faces, genetically changed and kept as pets by the Gravital. Eventually their status within the machine empire would rise, and they would gain all of the rights of the machines. Relationships between machines and subjects would eventually become normalized. The Astromorph Gods. An even more evolved form of the Astromorphs, changed beyond all recognition by 50 million years of continuous self-perfection and genetic modification. They would go to war with the Machine Empire following its campaign of mass genocide and emerge as the victors. They would then take in the remaining machines and use them as tools within their own empire, along with the subjects of whom they would rule over as gods. The Astromorph Terrestrials. A form of astromorph created specifically for life on terrestrial worlds with shrunken down brains and a physiology capable of withstanding gravity, which is no longer conducive to the life of an astromorph god. They were created to act as gods to the subject societies, but instead of raising them in a way the original astromorphs intended, some grew corrupt and would weave convoluted religions around themselves, demanding constant worship. The New Machines. Possessing nanotechnological bodies, the New Machines are the descendants of the defeated Gravital. Reprogrammed by the Astromorphs to be non-threatening and have dulled imaginations, they are still fully sapient and capable of independent thought. They are citizens of the Astromorph Empire, also known as the United Galaxies. The Amphicephali. The first friendly, non-human derived species to be encountered by the future humans, the Amphicephali are a race of giant snake-like creatures with heads at both ends, one of which possesses a second, smaller retractile body which is used to perform tasks and interact with the world. A truly bizarre creature, they were welcomed into the United Galaxies and became full members alongside the Astromorph Gods and the New Machines. Unknown Future Human. An unknown future human species that was the first to rediscover Earth, which had been abandoned over 560 million years before. The Author. An alien species of unknown origin, the alien author, as the name would suggest, is the in-universe author of the story, who has spent time researching Earth, Mars, and everywhere that the human race had once called home. It is the author who tells us that we must love today and seize all tomorrows. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video then please like, comment, share and subscribe. And also don't forget to check out the merch store, and if you like, you can make a Bitcoin donation using the wallet address in the description. This has been Beware the Q, and I'll see you in the next video.